Part 1. The Grand Assembly. The Grand Hall of the Interstellar Council was the largest meeting place in the galaxy. It was built at the center of Concord Station, a giant structure orbiting a quiet star. The chamber itself was shaped like a circle, its walls glowing with soft blue light and its seats rising tier by tier so every delegate could see one another. At the heart of the circle, a tall crystal pillar carried the council's crest, a symbol of unity and balance. For hundreds of years, this place had been the stage for every great decision. Peace treaties, trade agreements, and even declarations of war were decided here. It was meant to be a place where all voices could be heard. Yet over time, the stronger species had learned how to dominate the weaker ones. Behind polite speeches, hidden power and quiet threats shaped the future of the galaxy. Humanity was one of the younger members of this council. Compared to the old and powerful species, Earth seemed small and unimportant. Humans had joined the council only 2 centuries earlier. Since then, they had built a reputation for being polite, patient, and always willing to compromise. They avoided conflict, spoke with respect, and tried to build bridges when others argued. Many in the council saw this as weakness. Some mocked it openly. Others simply ignored the human voice, believing that Earth could offer nothing of true value. Ambassador Elias, humanity's chief representative, stood in his place at the circular table. He was a tall man with calm eyes, dressed in a simple gray uniform with the emblem of Earth at his chest. Unlike many other delegates who wore rich robes or shining armor, Elias chose plain clothing. It was his way of showing humility. The session began with the sound of a gong. The deep note echoed through the chamber. Delegates from across the stars raised their voices one by one, each speaking for their people. Some spoke with fire and anger, demanding more trade routes. Others spoke with pride, telling stories of victories and strength. When it was humanity's turn, Elias rose slowly. He bowed his head first, a gesture many humans considered natural politeness. "Honored Council," he began, his voice steady and calm. "We come here today not only to speak for Earth, but also for those who cannot raise their voices. The galaxy grows more dangerous every year. Raiders attack colonies. Borders shift with force instead of agreement. We believe it is time for us to remember the purpose of this council, to protect peace, to protect life, and to protect fairness among all." Some delegates nodded, but others smirked. The Zathari warlord, a tall being with scaled skin and golden eyes, leaned back in his seat with a laugh. "Peace, fairness, always the same from your mouth, human. You do not understand strength. The galaxy is not built on kindness. It is built on power." Elias turned toward him, his expression unchanged. "Power without restraint leads only to ruin. History, even your own, shows this truth. We do not ask you to become weak. We ask you to see that strength can also be found in unity." The warlord's laugh echoed again. Many others joined in, some with amusement, others simply because mocking the humans had become a habit. Elias did not respond with anger. He lowered his head slightly as if acknowledging their laughter, then continued his speech. Behind him sat 3 other human envoys. One was a young diplomat named Sarah, who had just joined the mission. Her hands were folded tightly, her knuckles white. She hated hearing the way the council mocked their ambassador. She wanted to stand up, to argue, to shout that humanity was not weak, but she stayed silent, watching Elias with a mixture of frustration and admiration. The second envoy, Captain Marcus, was a military observer. He wore the same plain gray uniform, but his eyes were sharper, harder. He sat quietly, but his gaze scanned the chamber like a soldier on watch. He noted which species laughed, which ignored, and which secretly looked thoughtful. The third was Dr. Lin, a historian who had studied the rise and fall of civilizations across the stars. She leaned close to Sarah and whispered, "Do not be quick to anger. The ambassador knows what he is doing. The mask of patience has a purpose," Sarah frowned. "But they treat us like children." "Yes," Lin replied softly, "and children grow." Back in the center of the chamber, Elias finished his speech. He called for a new resolution: increased cooperation among colonies, better defense for outlying settlements, and a fair sharing of resources. It was a simple, balanced proposal, but the response was predictable. The warlike species rejected it instantly. The trading empires claimed it would hurt their profits. Others simply shrugged and called it idealistic. When the voting began, only a small handful supported humanity's idea. The majority voted against. The decision was final. The gong rang again. Elias bowed once more, thanked the council for its time, and sat down. As the chamber filled with chatter, laughter, and side negotiations, Sarah leaned toward him. "Ambassador, how can you let this stand? They humiliate us. They laugh at us. And they ignore the danger." Elias smiled faintly, though his eyes showed no joy. "Patience, Sarah. They see only what we allow them to see. Let them believe their laughter. It costs us nothing." Marcus spoke next, his voice quiet but firm. "But one day, Ambassador, patience will run thin." Elias's gaze shifted toward him, then back to the chamber. His tone remained calm. "Yes, one day." The council session ended hours later with no real progress made. Delegates left in groups, still speaking loudly, still ignoring the humans. Only a few offered polite words of respect, and even those sounded empty. When the humans returned to their quarters, Sarah burst out again. "We are wasting our time here. Why do we keep coming?" "They don't listen." Dr. Lin touched her shoulder. "Because the day they do listen will be the day they understand. And that day will change everything." Elias finally spoke, his voice softer than before. "The council thinks humanity's strength lies in words. They think our politeness is weakness. They forget that patience is not the same as helplessness. We wait because waiting gives us the clearest picture. We endure because endurance makes us stronger. And when the time comes, Sarah, they will learn what patience was hiding." Sarah stared at him, unsure whether to feel comforted or unsettled. Outside the window of their quarters, the galaxy stretched wide. Countless stars shone against the dark. Ships moved in steady paths around Concord Station. Somewhere out there, colonies struggled, raiders circled, and wars brewed. The council laughed in their hall, blind to the storm that was slowly, quietly building. Humanity remained polite. Humanity remained patient. But patience, as Elias had said, was not endless. Part 2, Insults Behind Smiles. The next morning, the council hall once again filled with delegates. The blue lights shimmered over the walls, and voices echoed before the gong had even sounded. Concord Station was alive with energy. Rumors had spread quickly after the last session. Humans had once more tried to speak of unity, and once more they had been mocked. To many delegates, this was nothing new. It was almost tradition now. Humans would stand, speak of peace, and the others would laugh. It had become a game for some, a way to show dominance without open conflict. Ambassador Elias entered quietly with his 3 envoys. He walked with the same calm steps as always, his posture straight, his face without anger. To anyone watching, he seemed unchanged. But Sarah, who had spent the night worrying, noticed a deeper stillness in his eyes, like the surface of a lake hiding currents beneath. The gong rang, and the voices hushed. The day's agenda was full of disputes, trade wars, border conflicts, and accusations of spying between rival empires. The Zathari warlord spoke first, his voice booming as he demanded new military rights near human colonies. He claimed it was for security against raiders, though everyone knew it was a move to extend power. Elias rose to object politely. "With respect, the colonies in that sector are human settlements. Placing your fleets there without consent would not be security. It would be occupation." The warlord grinned, showing sharp teeth. "Occupation? Do not flatter yourself, human. Your colonies survive only because we allow it. Our fleets protect these lanes. Without us, your people would be crushed by raiders long ago." Whispers ran through the chamber. Some laughed. Others nodded in agreement. The insult was sharp, but Elias did not react with anger. He bowed his head slightly and replied, "Perhaps. But one might ask why raiders appear strongest where certain fleets protect." The warlord slammed his hand on the table. But before he could answer, another delegate, a sleek merchant prince of the Vayari, spoke. His silver robes shimmered as he sneered. "Humans complain, yet humans contribute so little. You send us grain, medicine, and those charming diplomats, but where are your fleets? Where is your power? You speak of fairness, but bring nothing to the table." Elias's voice remained calm. "We bring cooperation. We bring knowledge freely shared. And we bring loyalty to our agreements, which not all can claim." The merchant prince laughed. "Loyalty? Words. The galaxy does not move on loyalty. It moves on profit, ships, and fear. And you humans have none of these." The laughter spread wider this time. Even species who usually stayed neutral allowed small smiles to escape. Sarah's fists clenched beneath the table. She wanted to cry out to tell them they were blind, but Elias raised one hand gently, a silent reminder for her to remain calm. Captain Marcus, sitting silently, leaned toward her and whispered, "Every insult they give us is another mark on the list." Sarah frowned. "List?" Marcus's gaze stayed on the chamber. "Yes, soldiers always keep lists. Who mocked us, who underestimated us, who thought we were weak. One day that list will matter." Sarah shivered at his tone. Back in the center of the hall, debates continued. Again and again, humanity's suggestions were ignored. When Elias proposed shared patrols between species to reduce piracy, others dismissed it. When he asked for fair trade lanes for smaller colonies, the request was pushed aside. Finally, the Zathari warlord stood again. His golden eyes glittered with mockery. "Tell me, human, why do you keep speaking? Do you not grow tired of being ignored? Or is it in your nature to beg? You bow, you thank, you smile. You are like pets, pleasant enough but powerless." The chamber fell silent. Even for the council, the insult was sharp. Delegates leaned forward, curious to see how Elias would respond. Elias stood. His face was calm, his posture relaxed. He gave a small bow as he always did and said only, "Thank you for your honesty." The warlord blinked, then laughed loudly. "Honesty, you see? They thank us even for insults. What a curious species," the council laughed with him. Some shook their heads in amusement, others in pity. But Elias did not sit immediately. He looked around the chamber slowly, his eyes meeting each delegate's gaze in turn. His voice, still gentle, carried further this time. "Humanity listens. Humanity waits. We do not forget, and we do not leave our friends alone when danger comes." It was not a threat, not openly, but something in the way he said it made a few of the wiser delegates pause. Dr. Lin noticed them, the elder of the Kari, the scholar from the Verdari, narrowing their eyes thoughtfully. They heard what others missed. After the session ended, the humans walked back through the long silver corridors of Concord Station. Sarah finally spoke, her voice sharp with frustration. "Ambassador, how can you keep smiling? How can you bow when they insult us like that?" Elias looked at her kindly. "Because patience is our weapon, Sarah. Every insult sharpens it. The more they underestimate us, the stronger we become," Marcus added quietly. "And the longer they laugh, the harder the silence will fall when it ends." Dr. Lin nodded. "Civilizations fall not from sudden storms, but from the weight of their own pride. The council is blind, and blindness is a dangerous weakness." Sarah sighed, but deep inside she felt a strange unease. For the first time she wondered what humanity might do when the patience finally broke. That night the council's private chambers filled with gossip. Delegates told stories of how easily humans had bowed again, how the soft ones had no teeth. They laughed, not knowing that far away, across the scattered colonies, signals were moving silently through hidden channels. Human fleets stirred in the dark, silent and unseen. Messages carried coded words that no one in the council could understand. The humans kept smiling in the chamber. They kept bowing, kept thanking, but behind those polite smiles the mask was already beginning to crack. Part 3. The breaking point weeks passed and the pattern continued. The council laughed, humanity endured, and Elias kept his polite mask in place. But outside the glowing walls of the chamber, events began to turn darker. One evening, a message arrived at the human delegation's quarters. It was urgent, coded, and carried across secure channels. Captain Marcus opened it first, his face tightening as he read. "What is it?" Sarah asked, rising quickly. Marcus looked up, his jaw firm. "The colony on Halion 3 has been attacked," Sarah gasped. "Attacked? By raiders?" Marcus nodded grimly. "Raiders, yes. But the message says they were supplied and supported by the Zathari fleet." Silence filled the room. Dr. Lin closed her eyes as if the news was both expected and feared. Elias finally set down the report he was reading and stood. "So," he said softly, "the mask of the council slips as well." The next day, the chamber was filled with tension. Humanity had demanded an emergency session. Delegates whispered as the humans entered. Some were curious, others amused, and a few nervous. Elias stood in the center once more, calm as always, but his eyes seemed sharper than before. He raised a holoscreen, showing images from Halion 3, burning cities, families fleeing, ships destroyed in orbit. "This," Elias said, his voice steady but cold, "is Halion 3, a peaceful colony of farmers and scholars. They posed no threat. Yet they were attacked, their homes burned, their people hunted. We have evidence that the raiders carried weapons marked with the crest of the Zathari fleet." The Zathari warlord stood immediately, scales gleaming, his voice loud. "Lies, raiders scavenge whatever they can. Perhaps they found these weapons. You humans see shadows where there are none." Elias did not raise his voice. "The evidence also includes transmissions. Your officers gave orders. Your ships provided escort. This was not scavenging. This was support." Gasps spread through the chamber. The holo displayed intercepted signals, clear and undeniable. Still, many delegates shifted uncomfortably but said nothing. The Veeri merchant prince rose, waving a jeweled hand dismissively. "Even if true, it is a local matter. Colonies fall. Raiders attack. This is nothing new. Why make such noise?" Sarah could barely believe her ears. She wanted to scream, but Elias raised his hand again, silencing her before she could speak. "Nothing new?" Elias repeated softly. "To those who have lost their homes, it is not nothing. To children who cry in the ashes, it is not nothing. This council was built to prevent such crimes, not excuse them." But the chamber was unmoved. Delegates whispered, argued, and laughed. One by one, their voices dismissed the issue. "Unfortunate," one said. "Collateral damage," another muttered. "A tragedy, but not our concern," a third concluded. When the voting came, humanity's call for justice was denied. The council declared the matter unresolved and moved on to the next agenda. Back in the human quarters, Sarah's anger finally burst out. "They don't care!" They saw the proof and they still laughed. "What good is this council? Why do we stay here and bow to them?" Dr. Lynn spoke softly, her voice heavy with sorrow. "Because leaving would mean war, and war once started does not stop easily." Marcus, however, stood with arms crossed, his expression like stone. "War has already started, Doctor. Only the council pretends it has not." Sarah turned to Elias. "Ambassador, what will we do? We can't just let this pass." Elias looked at her with eyes that seemed older than time. For a moment he said nothing. Then, at last, he bowed his head slightly. "We will thank the council for their clarity." Sarah blinked. "Clarity? They mocked us. They denied us." "Yes," Elias said quietly. "And in their denial they showed us the truth. They will never protect us. They will never see us as equals. That clarity is a gift, though they do not know it." Marcus leaned forward, his voice low and firm. "Then the time has come?" Elias turned toward him, and for the first time, his calm mask cracked just enough to reveal something harder beneath. "Yes, send the signal quietly." Marcus nodded, already moving toward the secure terminal. His fingers typed a series of codes that reached across the galaxy. Hidden fleets stirred, long-prepared defenses awakened. Colonies that had seemed weak revealed bunkers, satellites, and technologies kept secret for centuries. Sarah watched in awe, her breath caught. "We were prepared for this?" Elias looked at her. "We are not fools, Sarah. We knew this day would come. Patience is not blindness. It is readiness. While the galaxy laughed, we prepared. While they mocked, we built. And now the mask begins to fall." That evening, the council gathered for a formal banquet. Delegates drank, traded stories, and laughed in the golden light of the hall. They thought the day's session was already forgotten. But when the Zathari warlord approached Elias with a mocking grin, the ambassador's smile was different this time. It was thin, sharp, and without warmth. "Enjoy your laughter, warlord," Elias said softly, "for it will not last." The warlord frowned, unsettled by the tone, but brushed it aside with a laugh. He did not see Marcus quietly slipping out of the hall, his message already sent. Above the stars of Concord Station, human ships began to change their positions. Hidden codes unlocked secret orders. Engines hummed silently, preparing. The council still believed humanity was polite. The council still believed the mask was real, but patience had broken, and the galaxy would soon learn what humanity had been hiding all along. Part 4. The Mask Falls. The council chamber was never silent, but on this day the noise was different. Whispers of unease floated in the air. Reports had arrived from the outer colonies. Strange movements, sudden disappearances of raider fleets, and a quiet stillness spreading across entire sectors. No one knew the cause, but rumors ran like fire. Delegates gathered, speaking in hurried voices. The Zathari warlord sneered as always, claiming the humans exaggerated. The Vayari merchant prince declared it was just another pirate feud. But beneath the words, there was a nervous energy none could deny. The gong rang, and the session began. Ambassador Elias stood once more, his calm face now unreadable. He bowed as always, but this time his eyes held no warmth. Honored council, he began, his voice carrying across the chamber. We have listened for years. We have bowed. We have thanked. We have remained patient. But yesterday patience ended. Murmurs rose instantly. Delegates shifted in their seats, surprised by his tone. Sarah, standing behind him, held her breath. Marcus stood tall, silent as stone. Dr. Lin watched with deep, steady eyes. Elias raised a hand and the hollow screen lit up. Images appeared, fleets of human warships emerging from deep space. Their designs were unlike anything the council had seen, sleek, silent, with weapons that glowed like captured stars. Entire raider fleets vanished before them in blinding flashes. The council gasped. These are the colonies you called weak, Elias said. You believed them defenseless. But while you laughed, they built defenses hidden from your eyes. While you mocked, they prepared for the day when your protection would turn to betrayal. The hollow showed more. Planetary shields rising over settlements. Stations revealing weapons hidden inside trade docks. Human fleets moving in perfect coordination. This cannot be. The Vayari merchant prince shouted, standing in shock. You hid these from the council. You broke the accords. Elias turned his calm gaze toward him. We followed the accords as written. Nowhere did it say we must display all we are. We gave peace every chance. But peace without respect is only submission. That is not the path of humanity. The Zathari warlord slammed his hand against the table. You dare threaten us? You think your hidden fleets make you strong? You are still children. Elias pressed another control. The hollow shifted. This time it showed the battle at Halion 3. Raiders armed with Zathari weapons. Their fleets moving with Zathari escorts. And then, the arrival of human warships. The battle ended in minutes. Raiders who once terrorized colonies were wiped away with surgical precision. The chamber fell silent. Elias's voice grew sharper. Children, you called us. Pets, you named us. But tell me, warlord, how many children erase a fleet in less than an hour? The silence deepened. Even those who had mocked humanity shifted uneasily. Outside the chamber, the council's viewing screens lit up across the station. Every delegate's homeworld received the same transmission. Live images of human fleets moving with discipline and unstoppable force. The galaxy was watching in real time. On the floor of the chamber, panic mixed with anger. Delegates shouted over one another. This is a threat to the balance. They will destabilize everything. They must be stopped. Elias raised his hand again, and somehow his quiet voice cut through the storm. Stop us. You could not stop the raiders. You could not stop the corruption in your own fleets. And you will not stop us. Because we are not here to conquer. We are here to remind you, patience is not weakness. Respect is not optional. From this day forward, humanity will no longer bow. Sarah stared at him, her heart pounding. She had followed Elias for months, doubting sometimes, admiring other times. But now she saw him not as a polite diplomat, but as a commander, steady, unshakable, and utterly certain. Dr. Lin whispered beside her. The mask is gone. Marcus allowed himself the faintest of smiles. The Zathari warlord tried once more, roaring across the chamber. We will crush you, human. We will unite our fleets and burn your colonies to ash. But even as he spoke, the hollow shifted again. More images. Zathari outposts destroyed by precise human strikes, their ships captured or reduced to drifting wreckage. The warlord froze mid-sentence, his golden eyes wide. Elias's tone turned cold. We do not ask twice. Stand down. Withdraw from human colonies, or the war you began will not end in your favor. The chamber was stunned. Never before had the humans spoken with such open defiance. Never before had they shown their hand. The merchant prince of the Vayari tried to recover his composure. If you do this, you will stand alone against the galaxy. Do you think you can face us all? Elias looked directly at him. We do not stand alone. Already those you ignored now stand with us. The small colonies, the minor species you dismissed, they remember who listened when they cried for help. Humanity listened. Humanity answered, and now they answer with us. At his words, a new wave of hollows lit up. Fleets of smaller species, long dismissed as weak, appeared flying beside human warships. They carried banners of unity, declaring their allegiance not to the council, but to humanity. The chamber shook with uproar. in the observation halls above, where citizens from across the galaxy gathered to watch. The mood shifted from laughter to awe. For generations they had seen humans bow, thank, and endure insult. Now for the first time they saw steel beneath the smile. "Is this truly the same species?" one Kari scholar whispered. "They hid it all this time," another murmured. And somewhere deep inside the station, fear began to replace amusement. Back in the human quarters after the session, Sarah could hardly speak. She turned to Elias. "You showed them everything." "There's no going back." Elias sat calmly, pouring himself a glass of water. "No, Sarah, there is no going back. But there is going forward. They needed to see. They needed to understand. And now they do." Marcus crossed his arms, his voice steady. "We've moved from patience to action. The Council will scramble, but the advantage is ours," Dr. Lin added quietly. "History will remember this day, the day humanity stopped bowing." Sarah finally found her voice. "And what happens now?" Elias looked at her, his calm face lit by the soft glow of the stars outside their window. "Now they decide. Respect us or lose us. But either way, they will never laugh at humanity again." In the council chamber, the echo of Elias's words lingered. Delegates who once saw humanity as harmless now whispered urgently among themselves. Some were afraid. Some were angry. But all were forced to admit one truth. The mask had fallen, and beneath it stood a power they could no longer ignore. Part 5. The Council Learns Respect. The chamber of the Interstellar Council felt heavier than it ever had before. The air itself seemed dense, as if silence had gained weight. Delegates who were once quick to laugh, to mock, or to dismiss now sat stiff and uncertain. The images of human fleets destroying raider armadas still played across their minds. The mask of politeness had slipped, and what stood beneath it was not weakness but power. Cold, disciplined, and undeniable. Ambassador Elias remained at the center of the hall. He was calm, his hands resting lightly on the podium, his face a mask of composure. Yet the chamber felt his presence differently now. He was no longer the quiet man to be ignored. He was the voice of a force the council could not laugh away. Sarah stood behind him, her heart still racing from the events of the day before. She felt pride and fear at once. Pride in what humanity had achieved, fear of what might come next. Marcus stood like a soldier carved from stone, his gaze sweeping the chamber as if he expected a fight at any moment. Dr. Lin watched with steady, thoughtful eyes, seeing not just the moment but the long story of history unfolding. The gong sounded. The session began. The first to speak was the Zathari warlord. His booming voice, once filled with arrogance, now carried a faint hesitation. "You humans," he began, his eyes narrowing. "You revealed hidden fleets. You struck at my forces without warning. Do you not realize what you have done? You risk open war with the strongest powers of the galaxy." Elias raised his gaze, calm and unflinching. "We risked nothing. War was already upon us when your fleets armed raiders and burned our colony. The difference is this. Now you understand we will not suffer in silence," the warlord growled, but his words faltered. He remembered the images of his destroyed ships, the efficiency with which they had been erased. His threats felt weaker than before. Next rose the Vayari merchant prince, his silver robe glittering. His voice, usually smooth with mockery, cracked with unease. "Ambassador Elias, surely there is room to negotiate. We must avoid further instability. Trade routes are profits. They cannot survive if you continue such displays." Elias turned toward him. "Then treat us as equals, not as children. Negotiate with respect, not condescension. Trade will flourish when fairness replaces greed." The prince opened his mouth, then closed it again. The chamber noted his silence. One by one, delegates spoke. Some accused, some pleaded, some tried to regain control, but no voice carried the weight it once had. The balance of power had shifted. Finally, Elias spoke again, his words measured and clear. "For centuries, humanity endured your laughter. We bowed, we thanked, we remained polite while you mocked. We were patient because we believed the council could rise above pride. But patience is not endless. And yesterday you all saw what lies behind it." He let his words settle, heavy as stone. "From this moment," Elias continued, "humanity will remain in this council only as an equal partner. We will not bow. We will not accept insults as humor. We will not allow our colonies to be treated as bargaining chips. If you want our voice in this chamber, it will be as one voice among many, not as background noise." The chamber stirred. Delegates whispered, eyes wide. Never before had humans spoken like this. Then Elias's tone hardened further. But know this, we do not seek conquest. We do not seek to rule. We seek what we always offered, peace, fairness, cooperation. The difference is this. Now you know we can demand it. The Ka'ari elder, a quiet scholar who had long watched with careful eyes, rose slowly. His voice was thin but firm. I have lived through many ages. I have seen empires rise with arrogance and fall with blood. Humanity, you showed patience unlike any I have seen before, and now you show strength. I, for one, will treat you as equal, and I urge others to do the same. The chamber shifted. A few nodded. Some remained silent, but the seed had been planted. In the public halls of Concord Station, citizens from every species gathered before wide screens. They had always laughed at humans, calling them soft, harmless, forgettable. But now they whispered new words. Strong, unyielding, dangerous. The laughter had died. Respect, cautious and uncertain, began to take its place. After hours of debate, the council reached an uneasy agreement. Human colonies would be recognized as sovereign, free from interference. Fleets would be withdrawn from human sectors. Trade would be renegotiated on equal terms. It was not perfect, but it was a shift, a first step. Elias accepted the terms with a small bow, but not the deep bow of old. It was a nod of acknowledgement, not submission. When the session ended, Sarah leaned close, her voice trembling with awe. Ambassador, they finally listened. Elias's face was calm, but his eyes carried the faintest spark of steel. They listened because they were forced to. Remember that, Dr. Lin added softly. History will say today was the day the council saw the truth. The day humanity's politeness ended and its strength began. Marcus gave a single nod, and they will never forget it. Later, in their quarters, Sarah sat by the window looking out at the stars. She thought of Halion 3, of the colonies, of the laughter that had once filled the chamber. She thought of how quickly it had turned to silence. She turned to Elias. Do you think they'll ever truly respect us? Elias took a long breath before answering. Respect is not given. It is earned. And it is kept only if you are willing to defend it. The council saw what we are. That is the first step. What comes next will depend on whether they remember, or whether we must remind them again. Sarah nodded slowly, realizing the truth of his words. Humanity had stepped onto a new path. There would be danger ahead, perhaps even war. But there was no going back to silence, no going back to endless bows and smiles. The mask was gone, and in its place, the galaxy now saw humanity as it truly was, patient, enduring, but never weak. In the great archives of the council, scribes would later write of this turning point. They would call it the Day of Clarity, the day when humans stopped being the council's polite bystanders and became its unignorable equals. The galaxy would never be the same again. And deep in the quiet of space, as human fleets patrolled with calm precision, one truth echoed through every star system. Humanity's politeness had ended and the council had witnessed it, in real time.